Morning and welcome back to the Tobago Updates Morning Show. Now, a salary increase is something that we all look forward to hearing during our working tenure, and thankfully, we've been seeing it in our educational system. Now, joining us this morning to speak about this recent salary increase is Mr. Bradon Roberts, tutor president. A special morning to you, and how are you doing this morning?
Hi, good morning, and it's Tobago officer. Yes, it is good news for some that we are able to close negotiations we have been waiting for several years. This is from 2014 to 2017 period, I mean 2023. However, the quantum is not satisfactory to our members, and I mean, a lot of persons may see tutor as losing in this particular regard and the government winning. But in reality, we all have to live in this one Trinidad and Tobago. And based on the hardship of the economy will determine how we all survive, how the crime rate is handled. So it's not something to be looked at as a win or a loss for any particular side. It's how it's going to impact persons' lives going forward.
I agree with that, Mr. Roberts, because we all know that a lot of people in Trinidad and Tobago that are employed, they are still operating on that 2013 salary. And the economy, the demands then at 2013 is completely different to what we are seeing now in 2023. And there are some naysayers that will probably say, why do the teachers deserve that? Little do they know that the life of a teacher is much more than just going on a blackboard and writing. So tell our viewers, just in retrospect, what the life of a teacher is, it really comprises of.
But before I go into that, really, I want to because a lot of our teachers are angry with the acceptance of the 4%. So if I could just touch on that first. Sure. The government seem to have had this plan all along to have negotiations dragged on to this point, so they have a 1%, and they give the impression as if they are negotiating, so they move from 1% to 2%. In no time, they would have collapsed negotiations that we are before the tribunals. They, in my belief, watching how this thing would have transpired, would have had this as part of their plan. Now, when you go before the tribunal, there is a 5-year limit in terms of a minimum that they can rule over.
Okay.
Now, we negotiate 2 3-year periods. So then the court is now obligated to do 2 5-year periods.
Okay.
So if we negotiate 4% or whatever closure of the gap that we utilize, it will not be at a 2 3-year periods, but would now be 2 5-year periods at a minimum. So we were able to see what would have happened with prisons, where they went to have 2 3-year periods rule over, and they were given a 4% over 10-year period. So we would have that would have resulted in us relooking our approach. We have our attorneys who would have given some advice. We went to the court on the last week Friday, and the judge indicated that it's a similar ruling he intended to give. Of course, it will be a disadvantage for us to have ruled over 10 years or 12 years instead of 6. So we would have decided to take the package from the CPO, although it is not the ideal figure. Now, the CPO's package includes additional allowances where they had increases to some of the allowances, like the traveling for those officers who have traveling, those teachers who are now going to get a telephone allowance, the senior teachers upward at administrative level. We have a $4,000 buyout or payout to those retirees who would have been there between 2014 to 2016.
Okay.
So there were other things on the table from the CPO that we were not guaranteed if we continued fighting at the court and the court giving us something that we really did not want. So while we have a lot of our teachers displeased with tutor taking the stance and we didn't fight all the way, we needed to look at the risk of it. Now, as you mentioned, the life of a teacher spends a significant amount of their income uplifting the education system.
Yeah, that's
so
true.
This is not a win for the government or a loss for tutor. The nation is impacted by our teachers. So when you give a teacher a $200 and something pay increase, but the retail price index shows that if you needed $7,000 to purchase items back in 2015, and you need $7,900 to buy the same things now, giving a $200 and something increase to the same persons who uplifting the education system is not something for the government to celebrate. It's not something for a tutor to see, well, right, we set a negotiation and we are happy. We are not happy. We are hoping that the government will do better in even going forward future negotiations so that we don't have persons behind the ball all the time. When cost of living goes up a particular percentage and you give a percentage increase that does not even match half of that, we cannot expect the culture of our society where crime rates on the rise for that to change. So no amount of police vehicles and money put into crime would bring back the hardship, which is the social ills that causing crime, you know. So we are hoping that the CPO, as we look at the SBA matters and all the other matters that he promised to look at in lieu of this percentage that they would have given to us, that they do their best in resolving all those particular matters.
Right, and Mr. Roberts, in your penultimate response, you would have stated that, even though you all accepted this is not the ideal package. So tell our viewers and our listeners, what exactly do you think is the ideal package that our teachers deserve?
Right. So we would have completed a market survey. So what we do, we don't do a percentage increase. We examine the market. We look at what our salary should be in comparison to what has taken place in the market, and we draw a line. When we draw that line, so let's say in this market survey, we saw a gap of $6,000.
Wow.
So where teachers receive now, they are $6,000 less than what they should be receiving. So then we do a closure of the gap. So what percentage of that $6,000 we're going to close the gap by to see what are the new salary is going to be.
Okay.
The CPO and his team never engaged in the closure of the gap. They had a blanket 001, 001, and then they changed that to 002, which is a percentage increase. Of course, we don't accept that. So what they simply did is give us the equivalent as what a closure is of the gap. We are now seeing where that closure would be in totality, average 9% closure. So 9% of the $6,000, that gap is what the CPO is now offering to us. So as I said, it's not ideal, but we risked not getting any or getting a 4% rule over even this 2020 to 2023 period. And that is something could not. We were able to, when we got the advice, we were able to reach out to the CPO. Of course, they are willing to have us accept that meager 4%, which is now a 9% closure of the gap. So they are offering teachers 9% of what they should be getting.
Okay, Mr. West, that's interesting. Those figures are some really interesting figures because everyone in society can know that a lot of the greats you see, the people, the role models you look up to, they wouldn't be themselves if it wasn't for a teacher or teachers really put a lot of their work into building some of our best and brightest in our countries. And when you look on social media, you will always see that teachers, even in the US, they are always arguing that teachers really deserve the most. They deserve more because they are they play an integral role into sustaining our economy here in Trinidad and Tobago. When you go to the hospital, those doctors, they had a teacher. Those lawyers, they had a teacher. Most of the people you interact with that you may look up to or hold a position that is respected, they had a teacher. And so, Mr. Roberts, it all brings me to question, how are you all going to move forward now? Are you all just going to accept it and say, all right, well, that is it, no more arguing, or are you going to keep pressing forward to make sure that the teachers get what they deserve?
Right, so it's a very good question. We have a list of issues that are affecting our members. So they are lacking the increments, the leave classification, SBAs. That is something that teachers, they mark with no additional fee being paid for that particular service. And you would know, several years ago, you may have had either 4 subjects with SBAs or 5 subjects with SBAs. Now every subject have SBA now, even English have SBA. So I believe maths have SBA,
maths has an SBA, yeah.
Yes, so there are some of these other items that the CPO have committed to giving greater attention to and having a remuneration package for the SBAs. So those are some of the other things that we have to continue pushing on. It will help to bump the salary or the remuneration of our teachers. Also, the CPO would have committed either 2024, 2025 financial period to do a evaluation of our market, a job evaluation, which would then give us the opportunity to install the necessary allowances we would want to see. For example, the technology allowance, teachers using their devices now,
Oh, yes.
paying for internet now, and so on. And it may adjust the salary when that job evaluation is done. So there is hope for betterment for the teachers in that regard if we are not stuck with the 4%. However, I trust that the government really gave a better effort, because we can't have corruption being bandied about on the platform by the opposition and by the government. We can't have hikes in contracts where we don't get the quality of work. And then you say to the people, we could only have 4% because we don't have no money. So you can't mismanage the money and then give to the population, because not teachers alone will be getting it. All the other unions, based on what we have experienced or we have seen, will be around that 4% border. We are going to create a culture in Trinidad and Tobago where we will then have to put the largest sum of our budget in fighting crime. We have a lot of social ills, and the teachers, out of their pocket, do a lot in uplifting the education system. We lobby out here all the time. So I really trust that the CPO in first instance, those items that you have identified that you want to ensure to be rectified in the near future, we have that done. Sorry. We continue to work with our teachers so that they will also give their best. The morale may not be as high as it should be. A lot of our teachers are upset, but we do not want that to trickle down to our students, the ultimate goal. So I want to give the encouragement. Yes, the 4% is very meager. I believe that $200 and something can't even buy you a tire to put on your vehicle.
Or even a data plan.
Or even a data plan. So we're going to continue to lobby for our teachers. In the meantime, we're going to continue to encourage them and to give their best. We won't encourage our teachers to not give their best. However, it's so much teachers could take.
All right.
So if teachers cannot afford to buy the resources for the same students, then students will get less.
Okay. Makes sense. And Mr. Roberts, you would have spoke about lobbying, and I could personally attest to that, because when I used to work in admin's office, you used to be there frequently advocating. You always used to be there so present. And recently, we would have seen the Division of Education. They would have issued some job vacancies with the salaries attached. So, a lot of people now, they are of the belief, what more do these teachers want? Because you're looking at the numbers, they're seeing at 12,000, at 15, sometimes even at 11, and you will have to say, what more do these teachers want? But it's only until you, as a child, you as a student, really sit down and see the work that your teachers put into ensuring that the class does well, that you are up there on the curve, that you will say to yourself, this is not enough. So just to remind our viewers, why our teachers, they really, really deserve that. It's not about what you're seeing on the flyer. It looks good on the flyer, it looks good on paper, but there's so much more that goes into that $12,000 salary.
Right. So we try our best not to discuss what the salary of teachers, what our salary is. However, the salary scale starts at $6,000. So we have assistant teacher primary. Some of them would have gotten their degree and so forth and waiting on paperwork to be done. Some of those teachers teach in standard 5 and standard 4 classes. We know how hectic that is. These teachers have $6,000 and something a month salary. Now, an average teacher, one in a primary school, gets around $9,000. Now, when you look at the training and the work that has to go into teaching, a lot of that $9,000 or that $6,000 on the lowest end is still spent on the school. So we have a lot of schools with the photocopiers not working. We discussed with admin Tuesday gone. Teachers buying printer and buying ink and photo and printing things at home to carry to school.
And those things aren't cheap.
They know they're not cheap. So when we would say it's not $9,000 to carry home, or $12,000 or whatever they see on a flat to carry home, we spend a lot back in our education system. We always hear in the ministry meetings, we have no money. In the division meeting, we have no money. I was recently in the media advocating for teachers to get their increments and their arrears that they would have already worked for. Education does not have the requisite amount of funds to deal with all the issues. You know who they bank on? The same teachers who don't have a weekend, because parents will still call and reach out to them. They don't have an evening because that's a planning time. You don't just wake up a morning and then go in the classroom and teach. So a lot of effort is put into teaching, financial effort as well. So that's why we lobby. And it's not just lobbying for teachers. We are looking at what our our society is coping with now and all these social ills. So while it's 4% is not just a teacher thing, we have to look how society is being impacted by the cost of living and the meager injection that the CPO is giving to the workforce, not just teaching.
All right, and Mr. Roberts, to wrap things up, we must discuss that CSEC scandal that we saw with the maths paper being leaked. What are your thoughts on that?
All right, so papers being leaked, and we recently had the SCA coming up as well, where I think it was the creative writing paper was out before the exam started. Papers being leaked is not a new thing.
Okay.
Yes, there needs to be measures in place, because sometimes we try to blame is a teacher. It has to be a teacher who leak it. But until you put a mark on that to see who would have been the person leaking, there should be no allegations out there. They need to have better control in terms of those persons who are preparing those papers and safeguarding those documents.
Okay.
It's very unfortunate if they have to do over some of those papers, because students are preparing for a particular date. When you have your mind set, by June I'm out, finish with this.
Exactly.
Especially for exam, it's a stressful time because you're putting in all the extra work, all the anxiety, it's there. Now, even the leaked paper, persons may see some of those questions and start to get thrown off because preparing for those particular things now.
Yes.
So it's unfortunate. I hope we don't get into the blame game and trying to identify who is the person, like they did with the SCA, and try to blame the teachers. We need to get a better handle of that. And with quality control, we will get that done.
All right. So, Mr. Roberts, I want to thank you so much for joining us on this Friday to just chat and talk about what's been going on in our educational space. So, viewers, that was Mr. Bradon Roberts. And just don't go anywhere yet. We still have a lot more for you. Just remember to share the live, share the live, share the live. We'll be right back.